I caught her in my grandmother's bathtub. Not metaphorically, not I caught her lying. I mean, I drove up a snow-packed mountain road I legally owned, unlocked my own front door, and there she was steam fogging the A-frame windows, lavender bath foam in the clawfoot tub my grandma installed in 1968. And Brenda Hutchcraft, president of the Pine Ridge HOA, sipping a Starbucks like she was on a Pinterest retreat. She looked at me, wrapped in a fluffy white robe, and said, "You're trespassing." Yeah, that happened. You ever have a moment where your brain can't even process the audacity? Like your internal wiring just shorts out? That was me, boots dripping snow on Grandma Ethel's braided rug, staring at the woman who once fined Mrs. Patterson $500 because her mailbox was hunter green instead of approved forest green, now squatting in my inheritance like she'd won it in a divorce settlement. Let me back up. 3 months earlier, I buried my grandmother. Toughest woman I ever knew. Survived the Depression, raised 5 kids alone, built that A-frame cabin in the Pine Ridge Mountains with her own hands when folks thought women couldn't tell a hammer from a spatula. The place sits on 3 acres with a creek running behind it. Pine trees, thin mountain air, quiet that actually feels sacred. Worth about $380,000 on paper. Worth my entire childhood in reality. E de just finaliza a divorcia. Lost half my electrical contracting business. The cabin was supposed to be my reset button. Fix it up, maybe rent it on weekends, breathe again. Then I met Brenda in her full glory. Picture a PTA president who discovered legal authority and never emotionally matured past junior high. 45, designer boots, real estate license. Married to Derek, who conveniently worked in county planning. Power couple of petty tyranny. At first, it was small stuff, a $400 inheritance transfer fee that didn't exist in the bylaws. Then certified letters started arriving like legal grenades. Deferred maintenance violations on a property I'd winterize myself. Emergency caretaker assessments charging me $350 a month for someone to monitor my empty cabin. That should have been my first clue. The second came when neighbors started asking weird questions. Heard you're in tax trouble. Brenda said probate's tied up. It wasn't. Everything was clean. Then came the 14-page letter from a Denver law firm claiming I was harassing HOA personnel and needed 72-hour written notice before visiting my own property. I laughed at first. Then I drove up unannounced and walked in on Brenda living there. Her boyfriend's boots by the fireplace. Designer luggage in the living room. Makeup scattered across my grandma's vanity. The smell of her perfume sitting where lavender sachets used to live. And she had the nerve to block the doorway and smirk. "You need to leave," she said. Or I call the sheriff. You ever feel anger so sharp it goes cold instead of hot? That's what settled in my chest. But Brenda made one fatal mistake. There's only one road in and out of that stretch of mountain. And my grandmother, God bless her stubborn foresight, secured exclusive easement authority on it back in 1962. At the time, I didn't fully understand what that meant. I would soon, because once I caught her squatting, she went nuclear. Restraining order against me, barring me from harassing her at 847 Pine Ridge Road. My address. Emergency septic violation requiring $15,000 in repairs on a system that didn't even exist because the cabin had a composting toilet installed before Nixon resigned. Then she filed a lien for $8,600 in fabricated fees, including $3,500 for unauthorized occupancy monitoring during the exact months she was living there. She was billing me for her own trespassing. And then she served me foreclosure papers at my job site, in front of my crew. Nothing like a process server in heels stepping over extension cords while your supervisor watches. That was the moment humiliation flipped into resolve. I hired a forensic accountant. What we uncovered wasn't just corruption, it was systematic theft. Inflated landscaping invoices to her brother-in-law. Phantom snow removal. Fake emergency repairs. $127,000 missing over 4 years. From retirees living on fixed incomes. Then the twist hit. Brenda's house was in pre-foreclosure. She'd been renting it out on Airbnb while living rent-free in my cabin. My inheritance wasn't just a getaway. It was her lifeboat. And she'd sold my grandmother's antique furniture in an estate sale, quilts, family photos, even my grandfather's army portrait, for $1,800 cash. That's when rage turned personal. Then I found something in Grandma's old filing cabinet, the original easement agreement. Section 7. Access privileges shall be revoked upon criminal activity by any user of said access. I read that line 3 times. My electrician brain did the math. If I initiated legitimate infrastructure repair, like replacing the failing culvert under the creek crossing, I could legally close the only road off that mountain for up to 30 days. And if criminal activity was proven, access could be terminated indefinitely. Winter was coming. Snow in the forecast. I scheduled a culvert replacement. Permits filed. Concrete sections ordered. Excavators on standby. 72-hour notice delivered to every resident. Technically true, the culvert really did need replacement. Just not urgently. Until now. The morning the construction barriers went up, I parked half a mile down the mountain with binoculars. Brenda stepped out of the cabin with her coffee mug, saw the trench carved through the road, and dropped it. I could see her screaming at Murphy, the excavation foreman. 10 days minimum, Murphy shrugged. Snow started falling that afternoon. Then Derek called, voice shaking. She's planning to leave before dawn. She thinks federal investigators are closing in. Federal investigators? Turns out, insurance fraud complaints tied to Brenda had triggered an FBI white-collar investigation months earlier. My recordings, trail cams around my property, documenting illegal rentals, buried HOA cash, and her conversation about forging documents to sell my cabin to a California buyer, that sealed it. Monday morning, 3 black SUVs rolled up to my construction site. Snow crunching under boots, breath fogging in the cold. Neighbors gathered, Colonel Patterson, Mrs. Lucy, the Kowalskis. The agents hiked up the snowy trail. We waited. Then we heard her, screaming across the valley. 20 minutes later, they came back down, Brenda in handcuffs, designer boots slipping on ice. "You're all part of the conspiracy," she shouted. A reporter from the Denver Post held out a mic. "How do you respond to embezzlement and fraud charges?" And Brenda, God help her ego, said on camera, "It's not theft when you're protecting property values." Agent Martinez actually smiled. "Thank you for that statement. For years, federal prison. Full restitution. Life en ban from moi governen." Derek got 18 months and lost his county job. The culvert got replaced. A beautiful concrete box rated for 50 years. The road reopened stronger than before. And I walked back into my grandmother's cabin, alone, unlocked the door with my own key. No perfume. No Starbucks cups. Just pine, snow, and quiet. Here's what I learned, and it hit me harder than the arrest ever did. Power doesn't corrupt everyone, but unchecked power attracts the wrong people. And most bullies rely on one thing: your exhaustion. They count on you being too tired, too embarrassed, too busy surviving your own life to fight back. Brenda thought I'd fold. What she never understood was that my grandmother didn't build that cabin just with lumber. She built it with foresight. Paperwork, legal clarity, quiet strength. Sometimes justice isn't loud. Sometimes it's a culvert permit filed at the right time. 1 year later, Pine Ridge is thriving. Transparent budgets, independent audits. Mrs. Lucy is HOA president now. Sweetest woman alive, zero tolerance for nonsense. We even started a scholarship in Grandma Ethel's name for students studying public administration. Because here's the uncomfortable question. If someone like Brenda can hijack a quiet mountain community for 4 years, how many others are out there doing the same thing right now? At what point does protecting property values become an excuse for stealing from your own neighbors? And if you discovered someone abusing power like that, would you fight back or would you walk away? I'd love to hear your take. Drop your wildest HOA story below. Tell me where you're watching from, and tell me honestly. When is revenge justified? And when is it just another form of corruption wearing a different face?